After this video, you're gonna have some grade 9 keywords, analysis, a full understanding of the character of Sheila and how you can use this analysis and apply it in any of your inspector calls paragraphs. A grade 9 keyword used to describe Sheila is epiphany. Now, having an epiphany just means you have a great realization. So we can actually see that Sheila goes through this huge moral and almost spiritual transformation. She has an epiphany, so there's like realization, about her responsibilities and moral duties within society. This actually presents her as a very dynamic character. So when we say dynamic, is that how she's initially presented to us in Act 1, which is quite infantile, quite childlike, is very contrasting to how she's presented in Act 3. We see she's more opinionated, she's more entrenched, so almost stuck within her morality this time. Whereas arguably at the beginning, she's very passive, very malleable, so easily changed based on what her parents are telling her. Here is some grade 9 analysis of the key Sheila quote, but these girls aren't cheap labor, they're people. So cheap labor is actually a juxtaposition because it's kind of highlighting this contrast between the intensive labor that women like Eva Smith are subject to, yet the minimal wage that they're actually paid, i.e. cheap. So this actually emphasizes Sheila's understanding and her epiphany, so that realization of capitalist exploitation. And when you exploit someone, you know they're vulnerable and you use those weaknesses to your advantage. And of course, this capitalist exploitation is best personified, so the best person for it, by her father, Mr. Burling. The second technique we can look at is the pronoun shift. So the shift from these girls to people actually represents this shift in perspective from Sheila. She's gone from seeing these working classes as these like kind of distant and faceless group of people, but now she's regarding them with a sense of humanity. And we can see that real development because she's now compassionate for those who are subject to this capitalist exploitation, whereas before she was ignorant to it. So this shift really signals her growing empathy and her alignment more so with socialist values. So remember, socialism versus capitalism. Socialism is the belief that everything should be evenly distributed within society, and capitalism is the belief that everything one person owns, they should keep. What we've actually done for you guys, if you go into the Lightup Hub and go into Sheila, we've actually given you the 5 key quotes that link to every single essay with the grade 9 analysis and how you can apply it. So you can just check those out if you wanted more of this kind of grade 9 analysis simplified for you to put in your next essay. So here are some other key quotes that show Sheila's character progression. And remember, progression is going forward, regression is going back, and stagnancy meaning staying the same. So whenever we're talking about character change, it's super important to either comment on if they progress, regress, or stagnate. And these quotes all show Sheila's progression. Mother, I think that was cruel and vile. Again, this is Sheila's realization, her epiphany, that capitalism is dehumanizing and exploitative. Dehumanizing, treating people like less than human, almost like an animal. He's giving us the rope so that we'll hang ourselves. This is Sheila's realization and understanding of the inspector's role within the context of the investigation. Despite her earlier presentation of her being quite infantile, so quite childlike, she is now the most shrewd, so almost wise, one out of the entire family, because she's really started to understand the inspector's role and the inspector's message about collective responsibility. Now, a collective is like a group together, so she has understood the importance and need for collective responsibility as introduced to her by the inspector. Here are 3 grade 9 Priestley's intentions that you can include in your next Sheila essay to impress your teacher. The first Priestley's intentions is he is using Sheila to promote social responsibility. So through the character of Sheila, Priestley emphasizes how awareness and taking responsibility for your actions is the first step to development and becoming a moral individual. Sheila's transformation symbolizes the potential for social reform if people acknowledge their role in perpetuating inequality. So we can see that Priestley uses Sheila as an example, almost a model example to the audience, to show that if people do take some responsibility for their own individual actions, then it can lead to a more fair and just society. Because imagine, Sheila is one small character, But if everybody in society took on even partial, even like a small amount of the transformation she undergoes, imagine what the whole of society would look like afterwards. The second reason that Priestley uses Sheila is to highlight a generational divide. Sheila's willingness to accept guilt and learn from her mistakes contrasts with her parents' stubbornness, representing Priestley's hope that the young generation will lead social reform and embrace socialist ideals. So remember, as I kind of said before, with character change and development, something that is super important to comment on, if we look at Mr. Burling and Mrs. Burling, would you say as characters they progress, they go forward, they change, they regress, they go backwards, or they stagnate, they stay the same? I would argue that Mr. Burling and Mrs. Burling actually are stagnant. So they stay the same, they don't change because they are stubborn. Whereas if we contrast that with Sheila and example Eric, we see they both progress. They both develop a collective social conscience. Conscience is knowing right from wrong. So a collective social conscience is knowing right from wrong in society. And of course, they adopt these socialist ideologies. So we can actually see, of course, Sheila's change actually highlights her parents' lack of change because she progresses and they stagnate. And the third use of Priestley using Sheila is to expose the superficiality of capitalism. If something's quite superficial, it's like fake. Sheila's growth is a direct critique of the capitalist mindset that values profit over people. Her shift from ignorance to enlightenment mirrors Priestley's broader argument against dehumanizing capitalist structures. So again, Sheila's positive progression is used by Priestley to highlight that this is the correct action and form to take for society. If everybody took the correct action of enlightenment and understanding the repercussions of capitalism, then society would become a more fair and overall better place. So if you did like this video, guys, do make sure you subscribe because we post lots more videos like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to link a video up here for some more in spectacles revision to help you smash your exams.